Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by fullpresscoverage.com. Go to their website, check out this podcast and other great podcasts and other great articles. Sap, have you done any articles recently that I should know about?
No, I'm a little bit of a slump, Jet, winding down the basketball season. Most of my columns recently have been basketball related. Since Aaron Rodgers requested a trade from the Green Bay Packers, I've gone silent. I probably should speak out and give my opinion on that.
This is a great time for you to...
Like, my two favorite athletes are complaining about the weather, tax rates, whatever can be. I've got to actually speak up upon this and see what my guy Aaron's up to. So, maybe
Everybody's
we'll do
waiting,
a football
Sap.
column. They're waiting
We're all
for me.
waiting
I'm
on
sure.
you. Yeah.
I'm sure even Aaron is waiting for me. I'll have to tweet out my column to him.
I did see some bad news for you on the Aaron Rodgers front, that he actually had, I think it was only the third best ratings on Jeopardy of all the co-hosts, not the best, Sap. So
I had heard he had the highest ratings.
Nope. It was actually Ken Jennings who had the highest ratings. He was number one.
Who was number two, Anderson Cooper or Joe Buck?
I believe it was Anderson Cooper. No, it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't Anderson Cooper. It was the guy who's the executive producer of Jeopardy, who everybody thought did a great job, and then Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, but Aaron Rodgers,
Joe Buck doesn't need any more jobs, for crying out loud.
He's all over the place, and Anderson Cooper is already doing a lot of stuff. He's CNN and 60 Minutes. Like, how many networks is he going to work for? So, but of the three celebrities, he had the best ratings, better than Anderson Cooper and Joe Buck.
Yeah, and Katie Couric, did she do one too?
Yeah. Well, there's hope.
And I know people are excited about LeVar Burton hosting, so maybe he'll do well too. But only third, Sap. Not that impressive.
Well, he has lost 4 NFC Championship games, so third seems to be where he's been finishing quite a bit the last several years.
We need more columns from you, Sap.
Okay.
You have free range at fullpresscoverage.com to write whatever you want to write about, it seems. As you did kind of at the Herald, where you sort of just...
Which was bizarre, yeah.
Why do people just let you do whatever you want, Sap?
Well, I think they think I'm a little challenged, and they're just like, just keep him happy. He may go nuclear if we don't let him do what he wants to do. I just don't remember pitching a column at the Herald with, how about 3 dinner guests? Like, that's so anti-Herald, because the Herald's political and conservative, and I wasn't conservative.
They said 3 dinner guests. Ronald Reagan's son, Ronald Reagan's grandson.
Yeah, and Donald Trump. My 3 dinner guests were Leonardo da Vinci, who I think is the greatest human being ever.
Yep.
Thomas Jefferson, who I think is the greatest American, and Richard Nixon, who I believe is the most interesting political figure of the 20th century. And I just wrote it as if the 4 of us went out to dinner and, who was having a pissing contest with who and all of that. So we had some fun there. You could do this with sports. You can do it with movie stars, whatever, or just one of each. I know you would probably have who? Marcus Smart.
Yep.
Who else?
D. Brown.
Rondo. D. Brown and Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, Rajon Rondo. Maybe Eric Williams. Bruce Bowen, potentially.
Wow. I think my
Brandon Hunter.
My guys are more interesting, right? I mean, you get Da Vinci,
No.
Da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, and Richard Nixon. So they let me do that. And I'm like, okay, I guess they'll let me do anything here. But I think they just humored me.
Well, write an updated one, Sap. It's 2021 now, so maybe you'd have a different dinner guest list.
I could do Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James just bickering the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd get along.
Probably not. They're both passive aggressive. So I'd have to kind of keep the conversation moving with them. Interesting idea, though. I may work on that. You give me a lot of good ideas, Jeff.
I do. And yet you haven't followed up on many of them recently. I hope you're writing them down, Sap, because I don't remember them.
I do. I write them down on my notes on my iPhone.
Yeah, you always have, you have your notes on your iPhone. You also constantly have a Sharpie in your hand, too.
Yeah, I'm like the, remember Digger Phelps, who used to do...
Sure. Oh, yeah. I met him, actually, when I worked for BC. My first job... I interned for BC's athletic department when I was a senior in high school as a school project, and I got to help produce College Game Day, and Digger Phelps was there with the rest of the Game Day crews. At the time, it was him, Hubert Davis, Jay Billis, and I have somebody else. So he was very nice. But yeah, he always had the highlighters, right?
He always had the highlighters, which matched his ties, which matched his pocket square. He was, I guess, anal OCD, which I am. So
Very well
yeah, I
put
always have
together.
this. Digger Phelps, about 6'4", 6'5", good sized guy. Was a good coach, great recruiter. By all accounts, you can probably confirm or deny this, that pretty charismatic guy, pretty outgoing.
Yeah, he seemed very nice. Not
Yeah.
they were not a very needy crew. I mean,
Yeah.
the job was basically, show them in, show them facilities, help them set up where they were going to be, and basically pre-production. And I was 17, 18 years old. I was just in awe to be around cameras at that point
Yeah,
in time.
that's pretty cool. Was Reed Olson the sports information director at that point, or was he still involved at BC? I'm going way back because that's who I dealt with
No,
in the
I
80s.
don't think so. It was
Okay.
D Filippo was the
Athletic
AD.
director, right?
And yeah, I'm trying to remember. I worked for a woman named Leah DaCosta, who's still there, but
Okay.
not in the athletic department anymore. But it was a fun job, yeah. And I got to do football stuff and basketball stuff as well as hockey. And the men's and women's hockey team were dynamite when I was there, as they almost always are. Though I did have a really nice couple of games talking to the women's hockey coach, who later turned out was not so much of a good guy. Do you remember that story? He got fired
Yeah, I
for,
do. I do.
Oh, he gave me a
remember that.
sweatshirt in the middle of a game. He's like,
Oh,
"Yeah, keep this."
wow.
This is, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's awesome." And then I saw a
Yeah.
year later, this guy's not so awesome.
No, it was a facade. Were you there when Matt Ryan was quarterbacking the football team? Or were you there the year
he
before?
was on the roster, but he wasn't the quarterback. I wasn't starting yet, so I was there the year before. I was there when the basketball team had Tyrese Rice. Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Williams.
Okay.
And Al Skinner was the coach still, so they were pretty good.
Al Skinner was a hell of a coach. There's a guy who I know in our last podcast we talked about coaches. I don't think Al Skinner is going to coach in the NBA anytime soon. He's, I think, in his early 70s. When he was at BC, they were always competitive, and since he's left, they haven't been competitive. So sometimes
horrible.
Leave well enough alone. Like if
the knock on him was
to the tournament.
He doesn't recruit hard enough. Well, I mean, you're still winning games, so
and it's BC. How can you recruit at BC? Yeah, I mean, I'm a star player, and it's Duke, North Carolina, or BC. I think I'm going to Duke or North Carolina if I'm a 5-star recruit.
Yeah, it's not like they're selling out games at Conti Forum. There, you can get good seats for about $5, and it's not. It's a fine facility, but it's not Cameron Indoor Stadium. No. So. Yeah, it's a hard job, but now we're on a weird BC tangent, and that's not where I want to be. But that's okay. We can, occasionally mix that sort of stuff in there. I don't think there's any columns coming in the future for BC basketball for you, Sap.
No, I don't anticipate that. There's probably like 106 schools that we could write about before them.
A guy that you might write a column about, though, is, I know he's a friend of yours, Sap, is Kendrick Perkins, who I was talking about Joe Buck having a lot of jobs. Jesus Christ. Kendrick Perkins is like 50 jobs. He's on every network. I think I saw him on Fox News the other day. Just, I don't think he agrees with what they're saying, but he was on a segment, I'm sure. So listen, he's one of the most opinionated guys, not just in the basketball talk circuit, but in sports. He is not shy, and oftentimes he'll say things that people vehemently disagree with, and he does not seem to care, which is why he's getting all this work, because he's really good at it. In fact, I thought he was a pretty damn good NBA player. Not great. He's probably better at this, which is saying something.
Yeah, he's the lead guy on Get Up. I mean, when they talk basketball, sometimes they'll go to Tim Legler, who's very good at this as well. But Kendrick Perkins is so much more entertaining. He's more current as well. I mean, he's LeBron James' age. They came into the NBA the same year, the same draft in 2003. He believes LeBron is the greatest player in the history of the sport, so that's our connection. But he played with LeBron in Cleveland. And, he even talked about that the Lakers are in trouble. He could see them losing in the play-in tournament or getting bounced in the first round. Again, he's a truth teller. We do. You do. I don't necessarily. But I think that the thing I like so much about Perkins, he suffers no fools. He's opinionated. He's right at you. I think he's great. I mean, he could fit on the TNT set with Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith, and Ernie Johnson. ESPN uses him more on Get Up. They'll use him on The Jump. I think he's fantastic. We see him on NBC Sports Boston. He's really the only one on there who will criticize the Celtics. Brian Scalabrine certainly doesn't. But Perk is great at this. He really is. And he has probably the weirdest background from when he does his hits on Zoom or whatever he's using. He has like a giant curtain behind him. I think that's where I got my inspiration for my blue
And he's also
tablecloth
living
behind
in a
me.
hotel for 2 months because of all the the damage done
Right.
from the bad cold and storms in Texas where he lives. And so he
Yeah.
was in a hotel with his family for I think 2 months. I
And
do believe he just moved back home.
it's been priceless too, because he's got all these kids running around. I think he has twins. Then he's got a son who's 8 or 9, who's already like my size and is playing youth basketball and setting picks and looking like an offensive lineman out
I
there. He's
think
got
he's
to
already
be
gotten
comical.
recruited from colleges.
Oh,
Yeah.
big young guy. And then his wife's dog was there, and I think Perk has a Rottweiler, which is one of the few dogs that I am really frightened of. They frighten the hell out of me.
Yeah.
They got like this really big hard head, but Perk has a Rottweiler, and then his wife has this dog that's probably the size of Perk's foot, and probably not even that big. And the
It's like a
dog
teacup dog.
It's a teacup dog, and the dog was yapping when Perk was doing a hit on NBC Sports Boston, and then the dog came and jumped on his lap. It was the cutest thing because his giant Perk, who's 6'10", over 300 pounds, and he's got this dog who
ended up looking like a Bond villain.
Yeah, exactly, with a tiny little dog, and he was great. But I love Perk because the thing I like about him is he doesn't sit on the fence. Like, you ask him a question and he gives an answer. And, he'll give lists, and I love lists. So he'll put out, top 5 this, top 5 that. And then he changes it 2 weeks later, which I love because, you know what? More information, you change. Doesn't mean you just stay in your takes forever. I mean, for the first half of the season, I thought the MVP award was going to go to Joel Embiid or LeBron James. And, the last half of the season, I think it's Nikola Jokic's in a landslide. Now, some other people are talking about Chris Paul, who I love, but his numbers just don't stack up against Nikola Jokic's to allow Chris Paul to become the league MVP, although he's going to get a lot of votes.
On Monday, I want to talk about that too, because I want to get to more of the Perkins stuff. But I saw stupid ass Nick Wright, who I know you like, but I think is an idiot, saying, Jokic is terrible choice as MVP. He'd be the worst MVP winner of all. We can get into that on Monday.
Well, Derrick Rose kind of has that retired.
Nick Wright sucks.
No, that's my guy. Come on. Nick Wright loves Aaron Rodgers, not quite as much as he loves Patrick Mahomes. Loves LeBron probably more than I do. I occasionally criticize LeBron. I don't think Nick Wright ever does. And he also loves Daniel Day-Lewis, who I think is the greatest actor ever. So we have all of that in common. But back to Perk. Perk puts it out there. And that's what we're here to do. Like, this is entertainment in the end. So when Perk puts out these things and people get all bent out of shape, sometimes, oh my God, Perk is too opinionated. No, that's what he's paid for. Do we want him going out there and going, I really don't know who the best player in the league is, but, I have a lot of confidence that, one of these 17 guys is. So good for Perk. And he put out another list, which I found interesting, and that's why I figured we'd talk about it.
Yeah, so getting into this list, and Sap, you're going to have to educate me as to what exactly this might mean, because it does seem a little vague.
It is. It's
vague. A list of most dangerous players. That's what he's calling it. Most dangerous players. What that means?
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
More terrifying than dangerous. Either one. Use that. But
I don't think he's talking about, you meet them in person, they're scaring you. No. It's about most dangerous or terrifying players on the court. How you quantify that is beyond me. I don't think the stat heads will particularly like this list.
No, they're going to be. I mean, Daryl Morey looks at this and throws up. I think that it's the guys that will take your heart out at a moment's notice on the court. And he's also putting into this that it's now. So we're not putting LeBron James on there because technically he's not playing, or Anthony Davis isn't playing, or James Harden isn't playing right now. So right now, as we speak, the 5 most terrifying players in the NBA to face, like when that team comes to town, you look across and see whoever and say, man, that guy's going to be a problem tonight. We're going to have to deal with him. So I think that's what he got at.
Yeah, I again, it's impossible to really quantify and debate all you want, but here's the list. Top 5. I'll go in order of I guess best to worst. So number 1, he has KD. Number 2, Steph Curry. Number 3, Russell Westbrook, who he's a big fan of. He loves Russell Westbrook, as do I. Number 4, he's got the presumptive MVP, Nikola Jokic. And number 5, he's got Joel Embiid. So that's his list of most dangerous or terrifying players. I've said before on this podcast that the guy who scares me the most in the NBA, not that I think he's the best player, but offensively is Steph Curry. I think every single shot he takes from anywhere on the court is going in. So it always, and they're always threes. So the value of the three and how great of a shooter he is, he just scares the crap out of me. Kevin Durant, you sort of don't notice that he's putting up 40 on you. It's like the guy that's just like sneaks up behind you and, you know, takes everything out of your pocket. You never know that he was there.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, really. I mean, at the end of the third quarter, you go, yeah, Durant has 36 tonight. And I'm like, really? I don't even recall him shooting a lot, but he has 36. I remember back in 2016, it was, I believe, late November, early December, whatever it may be. The Golden State Warriors came to town. So at the time I was at the Herald, so I went in and covered the game. And Durant and Curry were both on the floor, and they just lit it up. And all I remember is like being immersed in the stat sheet after the game and say, how damn efficient were these two guys? They put up combined like 74 points. I'm not exactly sure if it was 74, but thereabouts. And it just seemed like they did it in the flow of the game without forcing anything. I just kept looking at it saying, that's incredible. I agree with Perk here. I think they're the two most terrifying guys in the league because they're so efficient at scoring. And with Kevin Durant, you can't defend him. If there's 25 ways to score on the basketball court, Kevin Durant has 26 ways to score, and he excels at all of them. That's never been the case in the history of the sport. Not Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, even Wilt and Kareem, all these great scorers, they couldn't do as much as Durant can do. I mean, I've watched him in recent games.
A Paul Simon song, 50 ways to score basketball.
Exactly. With Durant, he's got 26 and there's really only 25 possible. He's just got more clubs in the golf bag, right? Use any reference analogy you want. I mean, he had a couple shots the other night against Milwaukee, runners that I think if any other player in the league took, he went to his left and then he switched over to his right hand from about 11 feet out, a runner. Most guys would have bricked that shot or thrown up an air ball. It hit nothing but net. And I'm like, there's no other guy that can do that.
Yeah, sort of to just go with that robbery analogy that I was using before. Kevin Durant's the kind of guy he'll sneak in the museum, steal all the art. You never knew he was there. He doesn't leave a footprint or anything. Russell Westbrook, who's number 3 on his list, everything's smashed. He spray painted the front door. Russ was here. That's how that's what their box scores look like, that's what it looks like when you're seeing them on the court. You're like, okay, I know Russell Westbrook got 15 rebounds tonight and he got 30 points because I saw every single time he put up a shot. Kevin Durant, you're like, oh, he scored 40. Didn't even know he checked into this game. He just kept scoring. But yeah, it's some of these guys, it's just they do it in very different ways aesthetically.
Isn't Durant almost like the great natural actor, the Shakespearean actor, that everything that comes out of his mouth sounds so authentic, right? Whereas Westbrook is the scene stealer.
Yeah, except for, it's hard to say everything out of his mouth sounds authentic as an analogy because everything that comes out of his mouth sounds bitter.
Good point. But as a scorer of the basketball and as an all-around player, it just seems so effortless. It flows. It's so natural. With Westbrook, he's the scene stealer that you go, whoa, did you see Christopher Walken in the latest film? He only had one scene, but man, he chewed up the scenery. That's Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. So I don't know, again, how to really quantify this in terms of most dangerous or terrifying players. Like, yeah, obviously, KD is unguardable. Embiid, he has at 5. I mean, Embiid, I think, is maybe the biggest matchup nightmare in the NBA because there just are no bigs really anymore. And he just puts up massive stat lines because nobody can guard him. Jokic is such a unique player that we've talked about this before. He's the worst player in the league to double team because he'll find the open guy every time because he's tall and he's an incredible passer, one of the probably 2 or 3 best passers in the league. And to be a center and have that title is pretty incredible. These guys, this list is very varied in terms of how they do it. Embiid is just like dominant. He's going to, in the post, just pound the ball and just body people. Jokic is like a sort of like a more of like a nuanced game with his passing and his 3-point shooting ability. Westbrook, like we said, you call him a tornado, whirling dervish. He's all over the place. Curry is just a sniper. Durant can score from all over the court. So all these guys have very different games and are able to dominate in different ways.
My list, I had Durant 1, Curry 2. I think that's pretty simple to explain, right? We both agree that these two guys are incredibly efficient, varied, unstoppable players. And again, I left LeBron off the list because Perk left them off because LeBron technically isn't playing right now. And LeBron, in a sense, is a little bit of Westbrook, a little bit of Durant, a little bit of Curry. I mean, he's kind of got all of these players rolled into one because he kind of does it all. So, his game is both awe-inspiring, awesome, but also very nuanced as well. The other three players I put on here are all Dukies, which surprised me because I'm not a big fan of the Duke Blue Devils, but I put three Dukies on here. I want to see what you think of this. Number 5, and I'll go in descending order. I put Kyrie Irving on there. I know you can't stand him, but you have to admit that as a basketball player, this guy is incredibly fun to watch, and he is also unstoppable. I mean, the other night against Milwaukee, he kept the Nets in the game. Durant had an off night. Kyrie nearly put up 50. He's got a million ways to score.
Yeah,
as
when
well.
he wants to be. He does check out sometimes.
Oh, he sure does. But since April 1st, he's averaging 26 points, 5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. He seems to be engaged this year. Hell, he's been the most durable of the three players on Brooklyn, more so than Durant. I know this is going to make your stomach turn. I mean, if they win the title, you're more pissed about Kyrie getting a second championship than Durant getting a third one and Harden getting a first. I think that would be your biggest turnoff.
Yeah, my dad and I were talking about this last night, how much we're dreading the inevitable Lakers-Nets finals. It's just like there's nobody to root for. It's brutal. But yeah, okay, who else do you have?
Root for me, because then LeBron would have 5 and I'd be very happy. Number 4, this may shock you, especially the way he's been playing since April 1st. Jason Tatum. He's damn near unstoppable, okay? He's damn near unstoppable. He's Durant light. He's almost as tall as him. He's physically stronger. I think he needs to get more consistent like Durant has been. But let's not forget, Durant's in his prime. Jason Tatum's 23. Since April 1st, he's averaging 30, 9 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He's become a good passer.
Yeah, he's really become a good passer.
And you can tell it's not just the assists. Look at the passes he makes to the wings after he drives to the basket. They're spot on. They're like LeBron James type passes where the shooter just catches it in a shooting pocket and lets go. He doesn't have to go down to his knees or up over his head. Perfect passes. And again, as he continues to grow as a player, he's going to be able to do that more because there's going to be more double teams. And that's why if you can surround Jason Tatum with some really good three-point shooters, I could see him averaging 6-7 assists a game going forward to go along with 27, 28 points. Number 3, I have Zion Williamson. Again, since April 1st, 30 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. The Pelicans are playing better. And again, I think he's the biggest force in the NBA. I know you're talking about Embiid, who's about a half a foot taller than Zion, but Zion's way more explosive, is a better athlete, is, I would think, better conditioned, although at times Zion looks like he's carrying a few extra pounds as well. Embiid does a lot of things outside that Zion can't do, but in terms of the closest thing to Shaq in terms of just taking the ball to the basket and just dominating through brute strength. Obviously, LeBron's in that category, but his game is more varied. I put Zion Williamson there. So I have 3 Dukies at 3, 4, and 5. Zion at 3, Tatum at 4, and Kyrie at 5. And I left Giannis off.
Yeah, I don't know how you can leave Giannis off and put and Zion on. They
are similar.
Play similar, and Giannis
similar.
has won 2 MVPs, and his team is in much better shape than Zion's.
Yeah, I maybe just,
he's got better stats across the board. He's
of course, he's also 5 years older. I think, Zion.
No, eventually Zion might be better than Giannis. He might not. I mean, that's a high bar. Guy's won 2 freaking MVP awards.
No, that's a very high bar.
May very well win more by the time his career's over.
Oh God, yeah, he's 26 years old. Giannis. I didn't put Luka on there because Luka's game again. It's at times with Luka, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts because he does everything so well. I'm talking about, and I could see where Perk was going with this, with having Westbrook on there, because it's almost like, holy crap, this guy's just got so much energy, desire, will. He wants to fight everybody. That it's kind of, in today's NBA, it's kind of scary for the modern player. Allen Iverson's favorite player, Russell Westbrook. Kobe Bryant's favorite player was Russell Westbrook. I will guarantee you, if you ask Michael Jordan who's his favorite player in the NBA right now, it's probably Russell Westbrook. He plays like those guys did. No, it's not LeBron. They hate each other because he fears
LeBron likes Michael Jordan.
He does. LeBron likes people, and Michael Jordan hates people. Again, black swan, white swan. So that I can see where Perk was going with Westbrook. The only problem with Westbrook is he may have a 5 for 22 game in the middle of all this, which he may, actually terrify his own team.
Sap, if he was healthy, do you have James Harden on this list?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not as physically dominant. And again, maybe we're just trying to read into what Perk was getting at it, terrifying, scary, whatever the case may be. Harden is, again, another guy who does it with skill more than brute force or athleticism, right?
No one's been a
passer.
No one's been a more prolific scorer than him in the past, decade in the NBA.
No, he put up numbers over the last several years that are, scary. Even this year, he's averaging almost 26 a game, and he's taken a secondary role to Kyrie.
Could you make an argument the Nets have 3 of those guys who are the most scared?
Yeah, that's what makes them scary and terrifying, right? You put the 3 of them together. Although I think they need Harden to make it happen because he's a facilitator, right? He's more of a facilitator than Durant and Kyrie Irving. Those guys, they can score off the dribble, but they can also catch and shoot. And you put Harden out there, who's a better passer than those 2 guys by leaps and bounds. Then that's when it's really scary. And he's bought into this year of let me lead the league in assists, which he was doing till he got hurt. Now Westbrook is leading the league in assists. So yeah, there's so many guys in here. We didn't even mention Dame Lillard, who's an assassin out there. But again, he's 6'1".
By the way, he agrees with Kendrick Perkins. He said Kevin Durant might be the best player in the NBA. Yeah,
I wish Dame would just go all in on it rather than he might be the best player in the NBA. No, he's the best scorer. I'm not disputing that. The guy in LA, and I'm not talking about Kawhi Leonard or Paul George or Anthony Davis. We're talking about LeBron. Dennis Schroeder or Kyle Kuzma, certainly with his blonde hair. But LeBron, let's not forget LeBron's career average is essentially the same as Kevin Durant, 27 points per game. So it's not like Durant scores 8 points per game more than LeBron. And LeBron's a much better rebounder, much better passer, much better defender, can defend more types of players, better leader, all of that stuff. So I don't think LeBron's lost his title as the best player in basketball.
No, until somebody definitively steps up and takes that mantle, which nobody has.
And I don't even know if anybody will. Even if the Nets win, does Durant become the best player in basketball? Because the narrative will be, the team's loaded, right? He should have won a championship with Harden and Kyrie. If LeBron wins a title this year with an injured or a hurt Anthony Davis coming through as the 7th seed and has to beat 3 really good teams in the West and then Brooklyn in the 5. That's going to be the cherry on top.
If say this scenario, if the Bucks win the championship and Giannis beats Brooklyn and LA and Giannis has an amazing playoffs, maybe you could say he's the best player right now.
Yeah.
So he could potentially take it because his team's not loaded. I mean, they're fine. They're good. But yeah, if that's a Herculean effort to beat the Nets and then beat the Lakers, and if he is a great, wins Finals MVP, you could say, okay, it's time. He's past LeBron right now. He's the best player in the league.
Yeah, because he also does it on the defensive end, right? And that's what always made LeBron special, made Michael Jordan special, made Kobe Bryant special. Those guys did it on both ends of the court. Durant at times plays good defense, but that's about his ceiling. These other players we've talked about, Westbrook and Harden and Kyrie, they're at times hindrances on defense.
Yeah, the other guy who I guess you could say that too is if Kawhi just goes off in the playoffs and beats the Lakers, beats the Nets, or beats whoever, and wins Finals MVP again, you could say, okay, yeah, I mean, now we've seen it enough. Kawhi's the best player in the league. So it could come up this offseason. I like the Bucks. I don't see them winning the title. I still like the Lakers over the Clippers, so I don't think anybody's going to grab that best player in the league title from LeBron, but it's not going to be Durant because no one's going to – the team is too loaded. You can't tell.
And even this year when he missed games, they played fine. The X factor has been James Harden. Brooklyn is 7-9 with Kyrie and Durant playing without Harden. That's below 500. And we see that they're kind of choppy without Harden. Even on the offensive end, they kind of lose their way. Giannis could be that guy. Kawhi could be that guy. We had that narrative 2 years ago when Toronto upset Golden State. I don't even think Kawhi should have been the Finals MVP. I thought that Kyle Lowry very easily could have been the Finals MVP. Even Pascal Siakam could have been the Finals MVP, but they gave it to Kawhi. But yeah, he could be that guy as well because, again, he's elite defensively. That kind of seals the deal when you are so good on the defensive end to go along with 30 points per game and all those other great numbers. That's what elevates you to being the best player in basketball. That necessarily wasn't the case in the 80s when Bird and Magic were considered the two best players. They were good team defenders. They weren't great individual defenders.
Right.
When Jordan came in and surpassed both of those guys, that was the reason. In addition to winning all those scoring titles, the guy was also being voted Defensive Player of the Year. That's a pretty wide skill set.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about too the mantle of best player in the NBA, someone's got to snatch it from you. You can't. Right. It doesn't just like, okay, he's declining over time. Someone's got to step up and grab it from you. And well, it was pretty vacant after Jordan retired until LeBron really stepped up and grabbed it. I mean, there wasn't anybody who was definitively, after Jordan retired, the best player in the NBA. We've had a very definitive best player in the NBA for coming on 20 years now.
Yeah, LeBron, I think, assumed that mantle when he brought Cleveland to the finals against San Antonio, even though they got swept. I think at that point people said, okay, this guy's now the best player in basketball.
Roster was putrid. That roster was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you had was Mo Williams? No, Mo Williams wasn't even on that roster.
No, it was Eric Snow. Who the hell else was on
Larry
that team?
Hughes.
Larry Hughes.
Larry Hughes was probably the second best player on
that
team.
Good Lord. Yeah. No, that team
was Antoine Jameson on that team?
No, like not yet.
No, not yet. He came later.
Drew Gooden maybe was on the team.
I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers likes to complain about not having a real good supporting cast. Just think about the 7 years that LeBron was in Cleveland, his first time there. He played with absolutely nobody. I love when LeBron.
Two worst finals rosters were that year. He brought that team to the finals, and Allen Iverson brought an awful 76ers team to the finals. Just horrible.
Yeah, I still love when LeBron haters will go, he had Shaq in Cleveland. I go, yeah, Shaq was 40 and weighed about 350 pounds. That wasn't Shaq. So Jordan retired in 98. We're not going to include in this discussion his 2 years in Washington. So from 98 to LeBron assuming the title as best player in basketball around 2007, it's almost a decade in there. For a while, you could make a case that it was Shaq, Kobe, but they teamed up together and won 2 titles. Duncan won a couple of MVPs as well. Nash won MVPs back-to-back, but no one thought he was the best player in basketball. Dirk was really good, but Kevin Garnett was, in that
Iverson,
discussion.
Again.
Iverson was, a guy.
No definitive answer.
No, there wasn't. It went from Jordan to like a bunch of guys. Hell, Tracy McGrady probably had like 15 minutes as the best player in basketball. Yeah. Grant Hill, I thought, was going to be that guy, although Grant Hill never really was an accomplished outside shooter. Then when LeBron took it over, it's been his for 12, 13 years. He's probably had the longest run of any player in the league's history being called the best player in basketball. It's like 13, 14 years.
I think, in the 80s, it was sort of a co-best man in basketball between Magic and Bird. They sort of ebbed and flowed back and forth. People were saying, no, Bird's the best player right now. No, Magic is.
Moses Malone before them, too, also. I know everybody forgets about Moses Malone. Kareem was always there, always in the discussion. But then around 88, 89, maybe around 90, he said, the guy in Chicago is a little bit different. Yeah. He hadn't won yet, but he was just different.
So I'd say, 90, 91, he became pretty clearly the best player.
Without question, yeah.
Until, like you said, 98. So maybe like a 7. You could, if you're a real stretch would say he had a 10-year period as the best player in the NBA.
Yeah, LeBron's about 13, 14 years.
Pretty definitively. I mean, I know Durant likes to say, he beat LeBron in the finals, and so there was a period of time where he was. I've just never thought of Durant as a better player than LeBron ever. And I do think that there's some guys, like I said right now, I mentioned Giannis, and you can talk about some of the up-and-comer guys in the NBA, Zion, Luka, who may very well snatch that title from LeBron. But it's when you do, it's definitive. It's pretty clear when there's a best player in basketball. In the case of I guess mid to late 80s, there were 2. It was, pick Bird, Magic, because they were winning titles every year. Bird won 3 straight MVPs, which is almost impossible to do because of, like we said, voter fatigue. But yeah, it's LeBron right now. And, as much as that frustrates Kevin Durant, he's just never been at the level of LeBron. In fairness, probably only Michael Jordan has ever been at that level too.
Right. Yeah, because of the defensive end. And again, LeBron's a better rebounder and passer than Kevin Durant. Like, you just look at all of the components to being
Kevin
a
Durant's
great
a better
player.
shooter. That's it. That's the only thing
Better
he's better at
shooter
than LeBron.
and slightly better scorer, although their career averages are the same.
He's a more varied scorer, but in terms of total point production, yeah, they're basically the same.
There's never been a scorer quite like Kevin Durant. You know that. I can give him his props, and look, I respect the hell out of him. I think he's the most terrifying player in the league because, as you said, Jed, he could put up 42 points and you don't even notice it. That's scary.
Sep, the question would be, now because there's so many good young players in the league now and coming into the league, and we expect more players to keep coming in the league that are incredibly talented. We've talked about that before. I do wonder if there's going to be somebody that is as definitive of a best player in the league as LeBron, because there's going to be so many good players in the league. We talked about this. We've talked about this a dozen times, Sep, that we think the league has the most talent it's ever had. And I don't see that slowing down. I think we can look 10 years in the future and say, now the league has the most talent it's ever had.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jeff, because, 5 years from now, it could be Zion, Luka, maybe someone we don't even know yet that's still in high school or college.
That everybody's talking about, the Emoni Bates that everybody says is the next, Kevin Durant or whatever.
Right. Or Holmgren, who's 7'3",
Holmgren, yeah,
has point guard skills at 7'3". The thing that LeBron and Jordan, first of all, their athleticism was off the charts, and then their basketball acumen off the charts. Their desire to be great off the charts. Now, I know people will say that LeBron's not quite the killer that Michael was, but I think he's pretty motivated to be an all-time great. He doesn't run away from it. That may not be the case with certain players. And then we're talking about like Zion and Luka. They would be the first two that I would think maybe in 5 years they're fighting for that title. Look, I love Zion. I'd like to see him rebound better.
But do you see one of those guys saying, okay, this guy is he's like, the LeBron level is number one with a bullet.
Right.
No,
I don't
clear.
see it. I don't, because I don't think those two guys will ever be as good as LeBron is or has been over the last 12 years.
And we might not ever. We may never.
No, we may see that again because, again, it's the defensive end of the court. Luka is a liability on defense. Zion should be better on defense, and I worry about Zion's body type. I mean, he's a huge guy. LeBron grew into that body. We remember when LeBron came into the league, he wasn't as big as he is now. He eventually got into a guy who was about 255, 260 pounds, built like Karl Malone. But when he first came in the league, he was probably 230, 225. So he grew into that. Zion's already 285 at 6'7". That's a concern. And Luka, do you get the impression with Luka that, not that he doesn't take the game seriously, but he just plays so loose that does he have that little extra to make him the best player in basketball? He's got the skill set.
Seen him hit some game-winning shots.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that. But almost like, is he going to spend his offseason working on two aspects of his game, which the great players always did? Like Jordan became a great post player. Like, is he going to, like, we remember what he looked like coming into the beginning of this season. He looked 10, 15 pounds overweight. You weren't seeing that with Bird or Magic or Michael or LeBron or Kobe. You weren't seeing that. Those guys, worked their asses off in the offseason, but they also reinvented their game. Like, is Luka going to become a better three-point shooter and free throw shooter? Because that's what he needs to do to elevate his game.
Yeah, I kind of think he will. I think also it's a matter with him of they're going to have to find a way to get more talent around him.
Yeah,
because
they do.
When you have a guy who can be the best player in a championship team and he can be the best player in a championship team. And Porzingis just can't be the second fiddle on that team. He's not good enough, not durable enough either. Nope. Maybe the third, but so they're gonna have to maybe that will motivate him when they're seriously looked at as title contenders. Because even with Kobe, they were always from the get-go, they were always title contenders because he had Shaq immediately on his team.
Right away.
So he never had to go through that period of time early in his career where he was trying to find motivation and being a team that was going to be eliminated early in the playoffs like Luka is right now. So I do think that sort of comes with when you get better, more expectations on you, maybe you do elevate your game because you try to meet those expectations. Right now, the expectation for the Mavericks is get in, lose in the first round, maybe win, maybe get into the second round.
Yeah, it scares someone like they did last year.
I think sometimes it's hard to be super motivated to, okay, I'm going to really bust my ass, when I know what this is. These guys aren't dumb. They know what the landscape of the NBA is better than you and I do, and they know if their team has a legitimate shot or not. And he knows the Mavericks don't have a legitimate shot. So, I think it's hard to find that sort of motivation, but once you have the expectations and you have the roster and say, hey, if I just improve this part of my game, we can win a title. I think that changes things. If Luka were to bust his ass this offseason and say, if I just improve my 3-point shot, my free throw shooting, but I return to the same roster, their ceiling's probably the exact same.
Right. Yeah. The key is, can you start to make players around you better? But you do need competence around you. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So that's something, again, Jordan faced that very early in his career, but then you brought in Horace Grant, you brought in Scottie Pippen, and then you traded for Bill Cartwright, who wasn't a great player, but he gave him stability at center, and off you were. And then in his second three-peat, they brought in Rodman, Ron Harper, Tony Kukoc was already there. So you had nice pieces around him. If it was just Jordan by himself, you're not winning titles. As great as he was, I think he's the second greatest player ever, he needed some help to break through.
Well, it's the same thing for your guy, LeBron. You always need help. LeBron can drag a crap team to the finals, but you're not going to win with a crap team in the finals. He still needed, Kyrie and Kevin Love and, excellent players. And then in Miami, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, if you're a caliber of a Jordan or a LeBron, I do think that you're capable of dragging a subpar team to the finals. Yep. I mean, that's obviously rarefied air, Jordan and LeBron. Most people consider them 1 and 2 in some order. I have Jordan still at number 1. I know you have LeBron there, but in order to actually climb into the top of the mountain and win the thing, you need help. No one can do it by themselves. The best you can do is get there by yourself. Yep. You can't win it by yourself. No one's ever done it.
No, I mean, look, Moses Malone, and I keep bringing him up for whatever reason. I just think he's the most underappreciated player in the history of the sport. He got to the finals in 1981 with a 40-42 Houston Rockets team. They got hot in the Western Conference playoffs. Then he went up against a Celtic team that won 62 games. He played well in that finals, but he lost in 6 games. He couldn't beat that Celtics team all by himself. So that's a prime example of that. We see LeBron, his last year in Cleveland, 2018, I think he should have been the MVP of the league. He got to the finals, had a lead in game 1. They lost in overtime of game 1, and then the series was over in a sweep. And he needed help to beat that Golden State team, because that was probably Golden State's best team when you had Durant, Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green playing in their second year together.
Yeah, he wasn't beating that team.
He would have needed Kyrie Irving to stay, Kevin Love to step up, and they would have needed someone else probably,
right,
at least
probably
that type of thing to happen. So yeah, it's you can go so far, but you can't break through unless you have some help.
Yeah. So I think it's a good listen. Actually, we don't have enough time for this today, but I think maybe early next week, we'll talk about another thing Perk said, which is really interesting about how hard it is to win an NBA title compared to a Super Bowl. That's certainly an interesting and really good topic, and we could bring in some football stuff too. So we'll do that either Monday or Tuesday. So make sure you listen to that. But yeah, interesting debate as Perk doing his job. We got almost an hour out of just a small list he put together. So that's how you know you're doing a good job, is Kendrick Perkins giving us a lot of food for thought.
I'll have to tweet our podcast at him. Maybe
yes.
He'll take a listen to us.
Yes, thank you, Perk, for your service to the podcast and to the basketball entertainment industry. So that's gonna do it for myself and Mr. John Sapichetti. We are together, the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by our friends at Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out their website, fullpresscoverage.com, for this and other great podcasts and articles. And make sure you find our podcasts wherever podcasts are found. Check it out right on your phone in the podcast app. Just type us in. We're on iTunes. Type in the whole name of the show, the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Download us, rate us 5 stars, comment that you like the show. If you want to see our beautiful faces, you can see the YouTube on my YouTube page, youtube.com/JetStrier. Jetstrier is also my Twitter handle at Jetstrier, JETSTRIAR. Saps is at JohnSap25, JOHNSAP, and then the numbers 2 and 5. We make it real simple for you. Tweet out the links to the show so you can just follow us and find it there. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Sap, I hope you have a great weekend too. I know that the Lakers have some big games, so you'll be anxiously awaiting the result of those. And I am less anxiously awaiting the results of the Celtics games because I know where their season's ending. So until then, thanks for watching or listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you on Monday. See ya.